You're listening to the radio voice of Kutztown University, KUR Kutztown, and you're listening to the second edition of the Golden Hour, your home for all things insights, recaps, discussions, and interviews about all things KU sports. I'm Tommy Scuderi here with you, hoping that you're all enjoying your Labor Day of no classes and hopefully no work. That's not always the case on Labor Day, but that is the idea. And it is finally game week here at Kutztown. No more, speculation, no more wondering. Things will finally get started this week for all four of our fall sports, whether that's field hockey, volleyball, football, and soccer. Three of those teams will be here on campus starting their seasons. One will be on the road, that being the Kutztown women's soccer team. They will head out to Concord, West Virginia to play them. They are 6-0 against Concord University, so a matchup that has historically treated them very well, but they will be on the road to start the season on September 4th. The first game, for any of these teams will be the Kutztown field hockey team. That is 2 p.m. On Thursday. That is here at Andre Reed Stadium. They will start off what is hoping to be another national championship campaign for them. They have appeared in back-to-back national championship games, winning it in 2023 and coming up just short in 2024. They start their season against Southern New Hampshire at Andre Reed Stadium. Volleyball will start off on Friday. That is at 6 p.m. They will play Chestnut Hill, a bit of a new direction for that program coming off a less than ideal 2024 season. They have a new head coach, so exciting things to look at there. And then, of course, the Kutztown football team will play under the lights on Thursday night, 7 p.m. against Assumption. That is the third straight year that the Kutztown football team will start off with Assumption. That is also our Morgan's Message game. We'll talk a little bit more about that later in the show. But I was able to sit down with Kutztown quarterback Judd Novak to talk about a few things, that Assumption game being one of them. We have that interview for you here on the Golden Hour. It's quarterback Judd Novak. With Kutztown football set to open the 2025 season against Assumption this Thursday, we're joined by the man under center, quarterback Judd Novak. He's led the Golden Bears to 2 conference championships and is looking to add to his legacy this fall. Thank you for joining the show, Judd.
Yep, thank you. Thanks for having me.
Of course. So how has the offseason been for you guys?
Yeah, it's been a pretty good offseason. The guys coming back, they're looking pretty good and nice and well in shape. I think we had a very good camp. The offense is looking really well, and our defense, as always, is looking very solid.
So kind of building on that, what are some of your personal goals, either statistically or just as a team leader?
So personal goals, I'll start first. So the goal is to be all-conference quarterback, first team specifically, and then be all-region quarterback for Super Region 1. And as a team leader, we have our 2 captains, Steve Burkhart and Freddie Redder, but I feel like I'm just a captain as well for the offense, being the commander of the offense. So just leading our guys to victories.
So how does the team plan to stay hungry and push for another deep playoff run?
Yeah, I think we all ride behind Coach Clem's motto, 1-0. He's an exceptional coach, and just going week by week, not really focusing on the future because we don't have control on that. So right now we're just solely focused on Assumption and what they're running.
So you talked a little bit about it. With such a strong culture already in place, are there any younger players that you're kind of excited to see step up into that culture this year?
Yeah, I mean, I think our freshman class is very, very good. They're going to be very good in the upcoming years. We have some really good defensive players, defensive linebackers, corners, and safeties. Linebacker Connor Kelly, and then on the offensive side, I think we have very solid running backs and receivers, and a very solid tight end, Jake Tuttle. So I'm very excited about our freshman class and the guys coming up. So it's very exciting.
So looking back kind of at the last couple of years, how does it feel to be back-to-back PSAC champions, and how does that success motivate you this year?
Yeah, it's a blessing for sure. All the hard work paying off. We're definitely we want to go for the three-peat with the PSAC championship. So we're just going to take it one game at a time, but that's in the back of our heads. So just focusing on the non-league games, and then when PSEC play comes, just to know that every game matters a little bit more.
What has been the most memorable moment across your college career so far?
It's a good question. I'd say the most memorable would have to be when we played Colorado School of Mines. Even though we lost, um, that was I will never forget that. Flying into Colorado with the whole team, um, going to the hotel, and then that stadium was so beautiful. Having the mountains in the background, the snow on the sidelines, and our fans our fans traveled very well. And then even though we lost, I always enjoy that looking at that run that I had for the touchdown. But yeah.
Yeah, how was the elevation up there? Like the differences between that?
Oh,
Was
it
it
was different. It was different. When after I ran that touchdown, I had to get like an air
an
tank or
air
something.
tank?
Yeah, I was dying.
I would say that was like 60 yards or something, wasn't it?
Yeah.
I do
Yep.
remember that one.
Hmm.
So, what defensive schemes or just teams in general have posed the most challenges to you over the past couple of seasons, and how do you prepare for them?
Yeah. Assumption actually has a very complex defensive scheme. Luckily, though, they just changed defensive coordinators, so it should look a little bit more normal. We still don't know, but I would say Assumption ESU is always a very tough defense to play against, um, and I give my credit to them. But yeah, I would say those two teams.
So, what parts of your game have you feel do you feel have developed the most since your first start in 2023?
Yeah, I would just say the confidence, just in the pocket. I've as every year has gone by, I would say just feeling more at ease and trusting my O lineman. I mean, last year we had every O lineman was all conference, so that was just it was very nice to be back there and knowing they would protect me. So I would say this year just being way more confident in my O lineman as well, and just trusting that they will protect me. And we have a lot of good receivers. I think our receivers are very diverse, and I think we can trust any one of them.
So, how did your leadership style evolve with these 2 seasons now under your belt?
Yeah, I would say this is definitely the year that I need to take up and bring my leadership levels to the next level. Um, so really just being more vocal, taking control of the team. And like I said, Steve's our captain, but I feel like me and Steve kind of do a good job of being the leaders of the offense.
So, can you walk us through how your preparation, whether it's off-season training, your mindset, kind of evolved year to year as the expectations grow for this team?
Yeah, I would say one specific thing is everyone's working in the off season. You know that. So I would say one thing that I do is I don't compare myself to the other quarterbacks. I know if I just focus on myself and the things that I need to work on, then I will be fine. I think that happens a lot with kids our age and quarterbacks. We just compare ourselves, and that can put us down to the slumps. So just really focusing on things that you can control, and then everything else that's just in God's hands.
So, how have you kind of managed the pressure in critical moments, like you talked in 23 with that Colorado game, and so many other important games and moments throughout the last couple of years, especially later in the season?
Yeah, I would say actually I've been reading that book, Inner Excellence, that AJ Brown read. uh, but actually, what I learned most from that is just treating it like it's like you're in the backyard with your friends, like you're a little kid. So I think that's really how I treated it in 23. 24, sometimes I felt like I let the situation get the best of me, but that's kind of where I'm falling back to is at the end of the day, I'm playing football because I love football. So really just treating it like that and just enjoying my time because it's going to be over soon enough. So
So, how are you balancing your development between like arm accuracy, decision making, and the ability to make plays with your legs? Again, like you mentioned, that long run in Colorado, and so many other instances as well.
yeah, I would say I can always rely on my legs, but I want to rely more on my arm and my accuracy because, like I said, I think we have a lot of receivers that can do a really well job this year, um, and I want to be able to spread the ball out to them so we can have an even more explosive offense.
Building on that, is there any part of your offensive game that you're focusing on kind of enhancing for the upcoming year?
Yeah, I would just say generally the passing game. it definitely jumped from my freshman year to sophomore year in completion percentages and yards. But I would say just to even grow from that, higher completion percentage, more touchdowns, and I would love for more than one receiver to get 1,000 yards. But we'll see how that goes. But I fully trust them, and I'm very excited to watch them work.
So you've talked a little bit about this, but who on the team kind of inspires you, whether it's other teammates or coaches that may even fly under the radar, but are pretty essential to the success of the team?
Yeah, I would say Steve is a guy that inspires me. With he always has a great discussion at beginning of practice, and when we bring it in. So I'm always pretty motivated by him. And then I would say the other quarterbacks around me. I think they make me compete and want to play harder. And the defense, our defense is pretty good, as you know, number one in the country last year. So it's always my goal to try and make them look bad in practice. But they do a pretty good job, and it's always a blessing. It's iron sharpens iron when I go against them.
Yeah, absolutely. That reads really well.
Yeah,
How does practicing against a defense like that, every single practice, kind of build the offense up?
yeah. I think it definitely makes me better. I mean, going against Freddie Redder every day makes me better. Sometimes I can't get the ball off, which stinks, but it's whatever. Um, no, I think it's it's truly fun to go against them because they're very energetic and they get it going. And then when we get a first down or score, we give it right back to them. So it's a good competition.
If you had to pick a current NFL quarterback that you kind of admire or try and model your game after, who would it be and why?
I would say Josh Allen just because I love the way he plays. I love the way he can just make things happen with his legs, but also his arm talent is insane. I love the way that he can throw the ball at any single angle, and that doesn't matter who he has, he's going to lead that team.
I can attest. I'm a Jets fan, and that man has given me nightmares
Yeah,
ever since he came into the
exactly.
league.
Yep.
So, kind of looking at Assumption, how are you guys preparing for the Greyhounds?
Yeah, so like I said, they have a new defensive coordinator this year. They just got him in July, so it's pretty new. We don't really know what we're going to see entirely. We have an idea. Um, so we're gonna stick to our thing. I mean, I think Coach Quarterman and Coach Taylor are excellent in scheming up the defenses. So I'm gonna trust in what they do and what they say. Um, and I say we just give the ball to our playmakers and let them work.
So, this is the third straight year that I've been here that you guys have started the year with Assumption. How much have you learned about them kind of in past matchups?
Yeah, Assumption's a tough team. They're a tough team from a good conference. Um, we know what they are, um, but we know that they could ruin our season, like they did a couple of years ago. But we give our respect to them.
So, how important really is a strong start to the year?
I'd say it's extremely important, especially in the way our playoffs are set up. You can only lose maybe two games. I mean, we got pretty fortunate 2 years ago when we lost the first two games. Um, but it's very important to start strong and then just to keep being consistent. I would say that's what Coach Q has really emphasized on is greatness is in the consistency. So that's really our motto is being consistent players and a consistent offense.
Do you prefer night games like the Thursday opener or the standard like afternoon starts on Saturday?
I love night games. Last year, that was probably one of my favorite games last year. I wish it was on a Saturday, but it's whatever. I still love the Thursday night game. The energy, the environment. It just reminds me of the Friday night lights, what I used to do.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
So, what are kind of the team's biggest goals heading into the 2025 season?
So the goal is to go for the third PSAC championship in a row. That's the goal. And then after that, I would say regional championship and then the national championship.
So, looking at the schedule, is there a matchup that you guys have circled?
Um, I'd say, especially with Coach Clem's motto, want to know, I think that's the most important thing to think about. Um, we obviously know some teams are better than others. I would say East Stroudsburg's a very good team. Westchester, um, and yeah, I mean, when it comes to the PSAC championship, we don't know who it could be. Obviously, what happened last year against Slippery Rock stunk. So if we get our hands on them again, we'll handle that. But yeah, I would say East Stroudsburg and Westchester are definitely two teams that we have circled.
Yeah, I will. Not to rub the sting in, but that Slippery Rock game. What do you think kind of went wrong in that game that really led to what I would consider probably an earlier exit than a lot
Yeah,
of you guys were expecting?
yeah. I mean, you got to give credit to them. They did a very well job. Um, their defense did a very well job of containing us, and we're known for our run, so they did a very well job with that. Um, and then you got to give credit to the Slippery Rock offense. I mean, they had a good scheme and they did it, but I'm still going to take our Kutztown defense over anyone.
Absolutely. So, what do you think this group's biggest strength will be this season?
I would say our biggest strength is the guys up front and the guys in the backfield for both sides. I would say our offensive line looks very well as our defensive line, and then the linebackers on defense as well as Steve, Jaden, and I. And then I'd say, like I said before, our receivers. There's so many that can just do so many great things. I'm very confident in them.
So, you talked a bunch about it. It's been the model for years, 1-0, not focusing on the week ahead, not
Mm-hmm.
pushing too far into the season. But how do you and the team stay focused 1 week at a time while also trying to keep bigger season goals in the back of your mind?
Yeah, I mean it's definitely challenging. I think sometimes I even get caught up in that, just talking about the future. But I feel like that's anything in life. You cannot predict the future. We don't know what's going to happen. So if you can just work at what you can do the best for that day, like that's the most you can do, and that's the best that you can do. So I think the 1-0 motto it's a great motto to have.
So my final question is, you kind of touched on it a little bit already, but everything goes right. What is the ceiling for this 2025 Kutztown football team?
The national championship. I truly believe that. I think why not? Why not now? Why not us? I have full belief in every side of the ball, special teams, defense, and offense, and all of our coaches. A lot of confidence this year, and I'm just very excited for the season to start.
We'll get started on Thursday, 7 o'clock against Assumption. Thank you, Judd,
Thank you
for
so
joining the
much.
show. I'll let you get back to your preparation. Thank you again.
Thanks, man.
Novak's always been, a great friend of KUR, has been more than willing to talk to us at several points throughout the last couple of seasons. And I thought he said a lot of real interesting things in that interview. He didn't really sugarcoat anything. That loss to Slippery Rock that ended Kutztown's season prematurely in 2024, it did stink. It was not a game that I don't think really anyone in that Kutztown Athletic Field really expected to lose. Not to say that they were overlooking Slippery Rock. We heard all about it. 1-0, 1-0, 1-0. This team doesn't really overlook anybody. But a home game coming off a bye, after a unbeaten season, to say a team that you've had success against in the past, I definitely did not think Kutztown expected to lose that game. But unfortunately, 25-24, an overtime loss off of a terrific play call by the Rock. Credit where credit is due. Ended Kutztown's season earlier than they expected in the second round of the NCAA Division II National Tournament, which sets up 2025. A team that got punched in the mouth a little bit to end the year, and now we'll see how they respond. A new year, a new team, but not too much of a new team. Kind of looking at the roster here, obviously, Kutztown quarterback Judd Novak will return alongside with the running back duo of Jaden Stewart and Steven Burkhart. That is in a really effective 1-2 punch. Both of them finished top 20 in the PSAC in rushing last year. This I really expect to be a run-first football team. I've said it on the last show. I'll say it again. This is a team that their offensive line should continue to be really good. Ryan Schrenecki, who was the starting right tackle last year, member of that all-conference team. Again, the whole offensive line in 2024 was nominated to the all-conference team. He moves from right tackle to left, so he'll now be protecting Novak's blind side. Billy Everett, the left guard who is returning. Seems like Kutztown really opted to fortify the left side of that line, moving Schrenecki over to have the two returners, the two returning starters, I should say, to Novak's blind side to protect them there. And it seems like that's something that Novak talked a little bit about when we were interviewing him on Friday was when that interview was recorded. Is trusting his O line and staying patient um, in the pocket and not being so quick to bail and take off running. Um, it seems like moving some of those guys. Shinaki, a redshirt senior, Billy Everett, also a redshirt senior, moving the veterans to the left side of that line. So Novak, the righty quarterback, can keep everything in front of him. CJ Conti is the new center that Novak will be under. Conti was the backup center last year. So he's been kind of waiting for his chance, the redshirt junior, and now will move in to that starting role. Adam Conklin, who I believe was the backup left guard, moves over to the right guard position, the redshirt junior, and will be the starting right guard. And then Shane Hartman, who was the backup right tackle, moves up to the starting right tackle, a redshirt junior. So a very experienced offensive line, three new starters, but everyone who was on this line was on the team previously, was just lying in wait behind all conference starters before. So really, I don't expect much drop off from this offensive line for KU. I expect them to still be as dominant in the trenches, both offensive and defensively, but just kind of just looking on the offensive side of the ball now. Kicker Dakota Campbell and punter Nate Millard will also return. The wide receiver room, I think Novak talked them up. They certainly have the potential to be impressive, but it's just the biggest question mark on this team, just because we haven't seen a ton from most of them. The new number one will be Noah Crisilla, who we saw really emerge on the scene about halfway through last season, when then returner Sincere Thomas went down with injury. Crisilla kind of took over punt returns in that slot receiver position and really excelled. And has never really gave that position back. He earned his way onto the field and stayed there. The two previous number one and number two receivers, Curtis Ravenel Jr. Has graduated. He is actually now playing in the indoor football league. And then Makai Gibson transferred to Division I FCS Tarleton State, who just beat Army in week 0. They were paid $250,000 to go to Army for a tune-up game and then beat them in overtime. So Makai Gibson is a part of that team, part of the travel roster. That was a part of that upset. So super cool to see a Kutztown alum, a part of a big game like that. But the rest of the wide receiver room, Trevor Armian, Lanique Preston, were both on this team last year. Trevor Armian, the senior, Lanique Preston, a redshirt sophomore. But we're not super involved. Really, Crisilla, Thomas, Ravenel, and Gibson were the four go-to receivers. They did see some field time, but not at the level that they're going to see this year. So I think just the biggest question mark on this KU team is that wide receiver room, as well as the tight ends. Gino Campagina is the new starting tight end, the redshirt senior, 6'1", 265. And then behind him is Luke Maxwell, who we saw more as a fullback than as a tight end last year. They used him a ton on third and short, fourth and short sets. He would come in and everyone in the stadium would know what the play call is. It would be fullback dive to Luke Maxwell, and then no one would really be able to stop it. He is the second tight end on this 2D depth chart that we got for game 1 of the season against Assumption. So that really is the offense here for Kutztown as they head into game 1. Kutztown was ranked 7th nationally, but D2.com after week 0, a ton of upsets from some top-ranked teams, now has them at number 4, according to D2.com. Some other sites as well that most of the PSAC teams usually use still have Kutztown at 7. I believe it'll be at the conclusion of this week when the new rankings come out. But Kutztown's certainly primed to be national contenders and a force again, especially with a ton of upsets. I think that was really the case in all of college football this week. Both at the D2 level, a ton of top teams went down. The D1 level, you saw Texas go down. Ohio State Army went down to a team where they wasn't supposed to lose to. Notre Dame lost last night. I'm sure there's some others that I'm forgetting. Of course, how for Alabama losing to FSU. So a ton of really high-ranked teams all over the country and all different levels of the sport losing. So it certainly seems like things are wide open nationally. And I think that's kind of the big picture goal for Kutztown now. You saw Novak talk about it. I mean, he truly believes that Kutztown can win a national championship. And I think after seeing the last couple of years, I'd have to agree with them. Um, I think I personally would not pick Kutztown as favorites to win the national title, although I would love to be proven wrong. I just think that Super Region 3 with teams like Ferris State, Grand Valley, like teams that have been like premier contenders at the Division 2 level that teams really talk about as pulling them up to D1. They will continue to kind of be favorites for as long as they're in the picture. But they're not unbeatable. I mean, we saw Slippery Rock against Ferris State, the team that would eventually go on and win the national championship last year. It was 38-48. A Slippery Rock team that barely, snuck their way past Kutztown. Into I think that was a very run heavy game. I think Kutztown's pass rush would have given Ferris State some problems in that semifinal game last year. So certainly these teams are not infallible. Um, I don't think it's a ridiculous statement at all to say, our goal is the national championship. And I think why not now? It's perfect, right? You have a relatively experienced offensive line. You have some great returners on the defensive side of the ball. Judd Novak, obviously as experienced as he's ever been, has started 2 seasons under his belt, redshirt junior. So he has another year after this year of eligibility. But I mean, especially at the D2 level, you never know what happens to these guys, right? You never know with the transfer portal who might go, who might come in. So this, I think, this is the year. And why not now, right? Why not try and get to McKinney, Texas, and play for a national title, especially when you've won back-to-back PSAC championships. I would expect Kutztown to be in the PSAC title picture once again, as we'll switch over and talk a little bit about the defensive side of the ball. The defense looks to be about as strong as they were. And I mean, they were at a point last year where I think they finished behind Harding at number 2 at best, best defense in the country. Usually the statistic that's pointed to for that is it's points allowed. Obviously, there's some other things you can look at, like third down completion percentages, sacks, turnovers. There's all kinds of metrics, but that is typically the one that is referred to when you talk about who is the best defense in the country. And for several points throughout the regular season and into the playoffs, Kutztown was the number 1 ranked defense in the country in terms of points per game allowed. I think it was around 8 before that Slippery Rock game, where it finished at 10.17 points per game allowed, which took them down to number 2 behind then Harding, who has always had a really stout defense alongside with a terrific running game that has led them to be national contenders in that Super Region 3 throughout the years. But on average, in 2024, Kutztown's defense allowed 223 yards, only 68 of them on the ground, 165 of them through the air. They had 49 quarterback sacks for a total of 272 yards, 18 interceptions. They had a 26-10 turnover ratio and allowed 13 touchdowns on 26 red zone visits. So only 50% of the time when teams were getting to the red zone were they actually punching in the score. They had a 35% third down percentage allowed and then 42% on fourth down. So a really impressive defense that will return a ton of key faces this year. One of those faces, it was someone that Novak mentioned, was Freddie Rudder. Freddie Rudder would probably be my pick for best defensive player on the team just because of how much of an impact he makes on games. Him and Kyrie Butler, the 2 starting defensive tackles for Kutztown, is probably one of the best duos, definitely in the conference, if not the entire country. The 2 of them just wreck quarterbacks. They stuff the run game. I mean, really impressive duo. But Freddie Rudder, if you had not heard this story, decided at the end of, I don't know the exact timeline, but at some point last year decided, I'm going to start, wrestling again. He wrestled in high school, but, kind of gave it up when he went to college, picked football. Decided, you know what, I'm a redshirt sophomore. I just finished my redshirt sophomore season. Let me go and, pick up wrestling. I'll wrestle at 265, the heavyweight weight class, and, I'll see what happens. And he goes on and, I think he finished 8th in the entire country. as a wrestler. Just his first year back wrestling in college. Just an insane athlete is Freddie Redder. And then Jason Fairmont and Jack Noor are the defensive end. Jack Noor, I believe, was a member of the team last year, but in the backup spot, Jason Fairmont, returning defensive end, redshirt junior. So the defensive line has a chance to be a real problem. All the linebackers will return for Kutztown in some capacity. Brandon Strausser, who was kind of the fourth linebacker in last year, was a starting linebacker along with Brandon Heil and Eden Johnson, two returners from last year as well. Noah Kenzie, who was a linebacker last year, makes the move to safety. He'll be the starting free safety, um, along with Jasir Harden, who will be the strong safety, a redshirt sophomore and redshirt senior, together. Lee Coleman, a returning corner, Zach Perta as well. So I think the secondary and wide receivers are probably the biggest, I don't want to say concerns, but just question marks, on this KU football team, just because they have the most new faces, things that we don't know. Um, but this team absolutely has, I think, what it takes to be national contenders. They certainly will be. I have to predict forces in the PSAC. They were picked first in the PSAC preseason poll for a reason. Seventh nationally in the first the poll before the week 0 games, where a ton of schools have already played. This team will absolutely be among them and be a problem for many to come. And I think Assumption is coming in. They know what they're coming into. I mean, these are teams that have played pretty much every year since 2015 in the first week or two of the season. 2015, they played on September 5th, September 3rd, and 16th, then the 2nd, 1st, 7th, 4th, 3rd, 2nd, 5th, and then 5th again. So this has kind of been an agreement between these two schools for early season matchups for these out-of-conference foes for a number of years now. It is advantage Assumption in the all-time history. Kutztown has 4 wins to the Greyhounds 5. Kutztown did, however, take the last matchup by a score of 24-6 in 2023 at Assumption. Assumption took down Kutztown 31-20. That was on the year that Kutztown made it to the Final Four. They lost their first 2 games of the season. It kind of looked like, oh no, I guess the season, is over by week 2, and they went on a winning streak. They won the PSAC title, and they won a few playoff games, and they made it to Colorado School of Mines, Division II school, that Novak referenced in his interview a little bit early, where they went across the country and played for a chance to go to McKinney, Texas, but ultimately fell short against a really stout Colorado team. In 22, it was an absolute defensive masterclass. Assumption won 3-0 2022. For Kutztown took the games 19-0 in 2021 and 54-16 in 2019. So Kutztown has won 4 of the last 6, 3 of the last 5. So this is certainly not a team that you can just glance over. I was at this game last year down at the sidelines, and it was a very physical game from the opening kickoff. A lot of big hits. Things got a little chippy at times. So these are teams that know each other very well, and I expect a very physical game. I expect a very ground and pound type game, and I don't think this is going to be a shootout like we've seen from these two teams, like 54-16. I don't think that happens. I think this is going to be like a 24-17 type game. I do think Kutztown will ultimately come out on top, but I think this will be a little surprising. I mean, it's early in the year, preseason, and it's not like a preseason in college, so practices can only give you so much. But your first real tests against a real football team, when the record matters, I do expect Kutztown to look a little bit rusty. Both these teams I really expect to be rusty, but I think Kutztown will ultimately pull ahead and head to Edinburgh the next week, the 13th, 1-0, which is the motto of this team. Which, if you have not heard what 1-0 means, essentially it's focusing 1 week at a time, or even can be broken down even more, which is one play at a time, one series at a time, one quarter at a time, one half, one game at a time. It's essentially a way to keep things in check and to only focus on what is right in front of you and going 1-0 every week, going 1-0 against Assumption, then going to Edinburgh, go 1-0 against Edinburgh, 1-0 against Gannon, to prevent from trying to stack wins or look too far ahead or to overlook anybody. And it's something that has had a ton of success under Coach Clemens. All of his players clearly buy into it, and it has led to Coach Clemens never having a losing season here as Kutztown's head coach as he heads into his 11th year as the head coach of the Kutztown Golden Bears. He has a 90-29 overall record, which, as great as it is having Coach Clemens and as dominant as he's been as a coach, you almost like, not you want him to lose a few games, but you don't want to talk him up too much because you don't want a D1 school to come in and poach him. I think if he continues to have the success that he has had and starts to translate that a little bit more out of Super Region 1 against these other like really dominant Division 2 programs, I think in a few years it's entirely possible that Coach Clemens ends up the coach of a D1 football program, which he absolutely deserves because of his track record. But he's not a coach you want to lose just because his players buy into what he's preaching so well, and it has seen so much success. So we're going to briefly step aside here on the Golden Hour. Field hockey, soccer, and volleyball. When we come back, I'm Tommy Scuderi here with you. Tommy Scuderi here with you. You're listening to the Golden Hour, and now it's time to talk field hockey, the other sport that is kicking off on Thursday. That is at 2 p.m. against Southern New Hampshire. The Kutztown field hockey team coming off back-to-back national championship appearances. They won against East Stroudsburg in 2023 and then ultimately came up short in overtime against St. Anselm of a two-peat in 2024. That was a really experienced veteran team in 2024 for this Kutztown field hockey program, and they had a lot of losses to graduation. But this is a team that, it's still in the national picture, right? Especially at the D2 level. The PSAC is just such a brutal is the word, division to play in. There's so many national contenders in the conference every year. You have Westchester, Shippensburg, East Stroudsburg, Mansfield is a team that gets in there. Westchester, IUP is a team that's not always nationally ranked, but always gives these teams some big problems. So by far the toughest division in the country to play in, and Kutztown has emerged out of there to represent them in the national championship game 2 years in a row now, which the only thing they have not been able to do, funny enough, despite appearing in the national championship back-to-back years, is win the conference. They have not won the PSAC championship in all the years of the recorded history. They're still searching for their first PSAC title. As head coach Marcy Schumann was a goal last year, ultimately fell up short, but were able to earn an at-large bid anyway and get themselves back to the national championship. They opened the season against Southern New Hampshire, another out-of-conference foe that they beat 2-1 on November 16th. That was in the first round of the NCAA playoffs, that 8-team playoff to earn the way to the national championship game. A game that went to double overtime, but they ultimately won 2-0. Kutztown does hold a 3-0 record against Southern New Hampshire. They have never lost to them in their program's history. They played in 2019. That game that went to shootouts. Kutztown ultimately won 1-0 after winning 3-1 in shootouts. Again on the road in 2024, they won 5-2 and then ultimately beat them again later in that season at home 2-1. So it should be another exciting year for Kutztown field hockey as they hope to make their way back to the PSAC championship, win that, and then ultimately head to the national championship. Coach Marcy Schuing is in her 12th season at the helm of the Golden Bears. Has recruiting down to a bat. Has put together great team after great team after great team every year she's been here. Also another Very nice head coach. Always willing to sit down with myself and others here on KUR. She'll be on the show at some point. Um, Talked to her last week. Tried to get her on the week prior, but ultimately scheduling did not work out. But we'll have her on at some point. Gonna probably aim for the next episode. Don't want to confirm anything, but we'll have her on the program at some point. Have some good questions we can ask her. She's a great head coach, and terrific with media as well. Um, but she's very excited about the team's upcoming season. She told the sports information department. She acknowledged that they lost an incredibly talented class, but they returned 7 starters, and they added a ton of impressive talent, both with recruiting and also with transfers. The transfer portal obviously huge in college athletics now. They have 3 Division I transfers, all of them being sophomores, which is big, not only for this season, but I mean, if you can keep them, right? Not only do they have a year of Division I experience, but you have 3 more years that you really can shape them under your program, under your tutelage. That can be Division I talent, in your program for 3 years, which is huge. And my favorite quote of hers that's come out of this article here from the sports info department is, "We don't like to call it rebuilding. We refer to it as reloading because of all the pieces we have in place." And I think that really sums it up perfectly. What this field hockey team expects to do. They're not in a rebuilding year. They're not going out. They're reloading and retooling to try and make another deep run into the postseason again and try and make it back to the 3rd straight national championship game and hopefully bring a national title back to Kutztown again. The field hockey team, as far as I know anyway, is the only team that has ever brought home a national title at the D2 level to Kutztown. So arguably the best team on campus here. They open the season at 2 p.m. on Thursday at Andre Reed Stadium. Same as the football. Same place as the football team, just a little bit earlier in the day. Would definitely encourage you, if you are around, if you're able to, on a Thursday afternoon, head out to Andre Reed. Go watch that game and go cheer them on. They're a great team to watch. If you never watched field hockey before, you can't watch it really at a higher level than you can right here at Kutztown with one of the best teams in all of Division II. A team that I really think could hang with a lot of D1 programs. The real travesty is that there's only like 30, I forget the exact numbers. I think it's somewhere in like 33, 34 Division II programs in field hockey, whereas, D3 and then D1, obviously, there's way more. But for whatever reason, a lot of D2 schools just don't field hockey programs, which is upsetting. It's not great for the game. But hopefully, as you start to see the growth of Division II, we start to see some more teams and opportunities in there. Roberts Wesleyan is one of those schools that's only in their 3rd year as having a program that Kutztown has played. They're from Rochester, New York. They came to Kutztown last year for Senior Day. They're on the schedule again this time. Kutztown will head up to Rochester on September the 28th to play them. And I think anytime you can really, play a team like that and continue to fill out the schedule of a new program, a team that's rebuilding, not really rebuilding, just building, period, is ultimately good for the game. We're kind of taking a peek at the field hockey schedule here. Some of the games to watch is going to be that Millersville game on September the 24th. That is in the midst of a 4-game homestand that starts on September 13th against Wingate. Then they bring in IUP on the 17th, D'Alville University on the 19th, and then Millersville on the 24th. That is a huge game to watch. All those games technically out of conference before official PSAC play starts. PSAC play officially kicks off on September 27th for the field hockey team at Mansfield. That is a 1 p.m. start. Then they go out to Roberts Wesleyan. And then East Stroudsburg, Bloomsburg, IUP, and Westchester. That's probably the most brutal 4-game stretch of the season for Kutztown. All those teams will almost assuredly be ranked somewhere in the country, if not highly in the PSAC. IUP always plays Kutztown really closely. Bloomsburg, East Stroudsburg, and Westchester. Always a thorn in the side of the Golden Bears as well. East Stroudsburg, obviously, Kutztown beat them in the national championship game, but they've played in PSAC title games. They've played in the playoffs. They've played all kinds um, with all kinds of stakes. But they'll see each other on October 1st to ring in Halloween season officially. Um, some people say it starts a little sooner. I think October is really the beginning of Halloween season, but I'll leave that up to debate. Then they go to Bloomsburg, or Bloomsburg comes to them, on October the 4th. On the road to IUP, and then back home against Westchester, and then Slippery Rock for Senior Day. And then the most exciting game of the year, which has always been the case with Kutztown field hockey, is Shippensburg. November 1st, to close out the regular season at Andre Reed Stadium. It will be Kutztown versus the Raiders at 5 p.m. And if I had to guess, based on what past matchups have told me in the last couple of years, is that is a game that could potentially decide some pretty impactful seeding in the PSAC Field Hockey Championship Tournament. Kutztown really historically has had trouble with Shippensburg in the regular season. It's not been, ultimately they've been able to get usually their third win after they've played each other twice. This is the first year that Shippensburg has not been scheduled twice in the year, as once as an out of conference game and then once as an in conference PSAC game. Kutztown will only see them once this year at the very end of the season in a game that will ultimately probably decide some pretty significant seeding heading into the PSAC tournament. In 2023 and 2024, Kutztown lost to the Raiders twice, either in the regular season or the PSAC tournament, only to get their win back in the national tournament to head to the national championship game. So Shippensburg really has had the team's number. They were the number one team in field hockey last year, going into the PSAC championship, a preseason ranking that Kutztown had at that time, but ultimately took away after beating them twice. I want to say Kutztown was picked first. They were picked first in the top PSAC preseason poll. So a lot of faith from the coaches in this Kutztown program that they're going to be able to get past Shippensburg and some other tough teams in the year. They're predicted to win the conference and hopefully for the Golden Bears win their first ever PSAC title in field hockey as they look for a national champion once again. Now moving over to soccer, they also start their season on Thursday, but they do so on the road. Women's soccer team is coming off another successful season. They made it to the PSAC championship game before falling to Gannon and then making it to, I believe it was the second round of the national tournament before ultimately falling there. They open up the season on the road in West Virginia against Concord. There's a team they're 6-0 against in their program's history. Their last matchup came on September the 5th in 2024, so they opened the season against Concord as well. They won 4-0 in 2023. They won 3-2, 2-1 earlier in 2023 as well. And then you have to go back to 2012 to find any more history, where it was a 2-1 win in 2012, a 6-0 win in 2011, and then a 7-0 win in 2010. So a team that Kutztown historically has fared very well against. They then go up to Mansfield on September 6th on Saturday. And their conference games get started right away. Soccer doesn't really waste a ton of time. With the out-of-conference games, Kutztown has one scheduled and then immediately into PSAC East games. And that's all they'll see is PSAC East teams in the regular season. They will also have Shippensburg on November 5th to close out the regular season. They will see teams like Lockhaven, Millersville, East Stroudsburg, Westchester, Shippensburg, Bloomsburg. So they'll just go through the PSAC East. They'll play each team twice. And then they will see how the championship tournament shapes up for the PSAC as they hope to make their way back to a PSAC title game and hopefully bring one home this time around. And then the last team that will get started this week is the Kutztown volleyball team. They open up the season on Friday at 6 p.m. in Keystone Arena against Chestnut Hill. That is a program that really has struggled the last 3 years. Is this Kutztown volleyball program? In 2024, they went 1-27, ultimately moved on from their head coach. They have a new head coach this year. So you look to 2023, they were 10-17, so certainly not terrific, but ultimately not very competitive, or certainly not terrible, but and competitive, but left some things to be desired. Going back to 2022, they did have a winning record. They were 13-12 in 2022, but ultimately missed the playoffs. Looking now at 2021, they were 8-19. 2020, we know how much volleyball was played then. It was none. 2019, they were 10-19. 2018, they were 11-18. 2017, 10-21. So really, you're seeing a period of sustained trouble for this team. 6-23 in 2016, and then 2015, 8-26. So really, just a ton of struggles for this volleyball team over the last number of years or so. But hoping that it is a new day and a new era under new head coach Jason Barshinger, who is taking over the program. Really a young team. That is the caveat to that Kutztown volleyball team, is they're all very young. They had a ton of freshmen last year. They bring back a good amount of them, as well as a few other upperclassmen. Still a young team, but when you have a new head coach, that's promising, because you can, they have the opportunity to mesh. They have the opportunity to work together and try and build some sustained success moving into 2025, which Barshinger does have a ton of history of doing. He was most recently at Division II Bring Anthem College. He was there since 2023. It was in just the second season of varsity play when he got there. They won a record 12 matches and enjoyed their longest winning streak of 4 wins in 2024. He mentored a all-conference first-team selection, the first one that they had in their school's history. It had 4 all-conference selections. They ranked 8th in Division III in aces per set and 20th in digs per set during the 2024 season. Then before then, he was at Wilson College, where he was the first men's head volleyball coach there. They turned into an 8-win program at just their second year of competition in 2017. He also relaunched the women's volleyball program at Central Penn College from 2012 to 2015, and by his third season had the team at 15 wins. So this is certainly a coach who has a history of coming into some struggling programs or just new programs altogether and building a winning culture. So a lot of hope in the offseason that Coach Barshinger will be able to do the same here as we take a look at the schedule for the Kutztown volleyball team. Obviously, volleyball plays a few more games than some other sports. We won't go through all of them, but they start off against Chestnut Hill before heading out to Philly for a 2-game series, one against Lincoln and one against Holy Family. That is a game both on Saturday, one at 3 and then one at 1. And then they head back home. They'll host the Shannon Sullivan Memorial Tournament once again. They hosted that last year. This year it is Bowie State, KU, and then Caldwell, for KU being the California University of Pennsylvania. Those will be the 4 teams along with Kutztown that will play in that tournament. Kutztown gets Bowie State on the Friday, September 12th at 5 p.m. Saturday the 13th, they have California University of Pennsylvania at 1. And then 5:30, they will take on Caldwell University to round out that 4-team tournament. Then they head out for another tournament in Buffalo. They will play Frostburg State, Assumption, and Slippery Rock out there before heading back home and starting the regular season. No tournaments, just matches. They play Georgian Court, Lincoln, Goldie Beacom, Jefferson. That Georgian Court game will be at home on Thursday at 6 p.m. at the Keystone Arena. Then their Morgan's Message game will be October 3rd on Friday. Morgan's Message is a mental health initiative for athletes and recognizing the importance of not only just physical health but also mental health as well, and how serious that needs to be taken. Every team will be hosting their own Morgan's Message dedicated game throughout the year. Football has it on Thursday. and then it's scheduled usually the second or third home games for some other teams throughout the fall and as we get into the winter months as well. Go to morgansmessageku.com to learn a little bit more about what Morgan's Message is and how important that is. But moving back, Millersville will be hosted by Kutztown on October the 4th. And it's a long string of away games before they come back on October 15th to play East Stroudsburg. And then they also close out the year with Shippensburg. So 3 teams closing out the year with Ship. This one will be on November 15th, the senior day, against the Raiders as they hope for a PSAC tournament selection there for this program. And I think just for Kutztown, I mean, just getting into the PSAC tournament has to be the goal. You were only able to win one match last year. You have a new head coach. You have a young team that should be able to, kind of shake things off and get into a new era of volleyball with some sustained success. So that is how our 4 teams will start off here in the fall. Very excited for the athletic year to get underway. It's exciting to look at the full schedule for all of our athletic teams and finally seeing a bunch of dates chosen on there. It all gets started on Thursday. Definitely go to both the field hockey and football games, and then volleyball on Friday. Be loud, be energetic, go support our Golden Bears on all embarking on either what should be successful seasons again or what is a new era in the case of volleyball. So I've been Tommy Scuderi here for you on the Golden Hour. You have been listening to the radio voice of Kutztown University, KUR Kutztown. We'll get you back to your regularly scheduled programming. Enjoy the rest of your Labor Day, everyone.